大家好，欢迎大家来到国际培训大咖五十谈，我是改进咨询顾立民。上一期呢，我们非常荣幸的请到了 Dr. Patty Phillips 帕蒂菲利普斯女士啊，跟我们进行了非常深入的访谈，就很多培训的价值的问题展开了热烈的讨论。那么其中的话题呢，包括如何评估培训和学习的有效性。这些评估面临哪些挑战？投资回报率方法论在评估过程当中能否纠正一些个在组织培训体系设计当中存在的一些缺陷等等？还有呢，员工的士气等等一些个软性的指标、团队的氛围等等，这些是否可以评估？所以呢，所有呢这些话题呢，我们都进入了深入的探讨。感谢 Dr. Patty Phillips for her decades of contribution。感谢他多年以来为这个领域做出的贡献，特别是投资回报率方法论。希望以后我们能够向您学到更多。今天晚上我们又非常荣幸的请到另外一位我的老朋友，他的名字叫 Belia Nel。我们有一句古话叫做有朋自远方来，不亦乐乎。那么这位朋友，这位国际培训界的大咖，他就来自于远方，来自哪里呢？来自地球的另一端，是在南非。那么今天呢，我们晚上的题目呢，就是叫做培训在南非。那么大家知道，中国和南非都是金砖五国的成员，那么也面临着高速的发展。企业的高速发展以及培训职能是否能为这些企业的发展做出巨大贡献的这等等的挑战。所以今天晚上呢，我们将围绕着这些相应的问题呢，向他进行探讨，包括培训在南非到底是什么样子的？南非有没有绩效改进呢？南非有没有电子化学习啊？有没有 coaching 啊、行动学习啊，还有这个教练啊，还有这个微课呀、等等。那么是不是在他们过去的发展的20多年当中，是不是也有一些个时髦的概念层出不穷，在刺激着我们的神经，在不断的鼓励我们去探索新的为企业创造价值的方法呢？好，我们下面闲话少叙，下面我们就隆重请出 Belia Nel。Hi Belia, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, George?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you, my old friend.
Yes, seems as though we've known each other for so many years.
Exactly.
And
And
we are so far away from each other.
exactly. Well, I'm just going to mention that. So you're in South Africa, and
That's right.
we have been on the board together as ISPI, the International Society for Performance Improvement.
That's
We're
right.
both on the board and both being the international directors. You are being located in South Africa, and I am located in China, in Shanghai.
Yes.
So but not everybody knows you. So first of all,
Yeah.
Belia, first of all, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be on the Training Masters series. And this, right now, nowadays, via Zoom is probably the
Yes.
way we can get.
We don't have to wear masks.
Exactly.
Yeah, isn't that a bonus?
Exactly. So for our Chinese audiences, Belia, would you please introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us where you grew up, where you went to college, what did you
Yes.
study, and
Yeah.
tell us where you live and work now.
Yes. Well, I think you know, but they don't. I live in Johannesburg, but I was born and raised in Cape Town, which I still travel a lot to because I have a home there as well. But I'm mostly based in Johannesburg because Johannesburg is really the hub of business in South Africa. So I went to university in Johannesburg, the University of Johannesburg, it's called. And I started out doing a high school teacher's diploma. And then years later, in fact, when I was already in my corporate job, I went back to university and did a degree in political science, and then later the last year in human resource development management. So I've got quite a interesting mix of subjects, but I loved it.
Great. So you're living in Johannesburg right now, right?
That's correct, yes. Yes,
Is
most of
that?
my business is here.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, currently I'm doing a project with one of our neighboring countries, Namibia, and but I don't need to travel because it's mostly a design project, so it also works quite well.
Great, great. So, we know that probably you are among all my 50 guests, not yet, but we're getting there. Among all the 50 guests, you're probably the farthest guest in distance.
I
So,
think so.
yeah. So, what season you're there? Is that summer over there right now?
It's summer, yes, we're in the height of summer, and
Mm-hmm.
Johannesburg has a summer rainfall. So I
Great.
think the storm coming, but so far it's looking okay. So we usually have a thunderstorm and lightning in the afternoon, but so far it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
yet there.
Most of the time, we don't realize that the seasons and the
Yeah.
southern and northern sphere are reversed. So just the
Yes.
just the
Yes,
opposite.
absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, I just go and dive into our questions first. And
Yes.
first of all, we have a lot of curiosity about the training in South Africa, because China, because in the world, we're the BRICS. There are five
Yes.
nations. The BRICS, that's Brazil and Russia, um, India, China, and South Africa. So the
Correct. Yes.
five greatest developing the most vibrant economy in
Yes.
the world on planet Earth, and South Africa. So we're talking to you right now. So just a little bit of background. During the China has opened up for 41 years right now, and training has made huge contribution to China's development during the past 20 years, after the
Mm.
millennium. So also
Yes.
as a fast developing country and fast developing economy, how training has contributed to South Africa's
Mm.
growth. Give some big
Yes.
pictures.
Yes. I mean, I don't want to get into a political discussion because it is so part of what I need to answer. But let me just mention and tell me if you're not familiar with the word apartheid. I'm not sure if your audiences are familiar with apartheid. It was a policy of segregation between white
Oh,
people and black people that
that's
existed, and the change to a democracy came about in 1994, and I'm
mhm.
sure many people have heard of Nelson Mandela, who was um, incarcerated for his political views and spent 27 years on Robben Island. Anyway, he became the first president of our new democracy in 1995. So to get to the training contribution since about 25 years ago, 26, 27 years ago, because we're such a fast developing economy and we were lagging behind due to the apartheid segregated policies, it's the one positive thing is that many universities and job opportunities opened up
Mhm,
for for the majority of our population. That was always previously only reserved for Caucasians like
mhm,
myself.
mhm,
Um, so the contribution to training has been huge because there is a tremendous skills gap and skill shortage in South Africa. We are very labor, we have quite a labor intensive economy as well due to all our mining operations. But many of the people currently are catching up on acquiring the skills because they could go to university, they could go to colleges, they could have access to private company jobs and government jobs where they get exposed to training and development. So if I had to come back to the training part, it's contributed a vast amount to the development of our economy. Can you just
Right.
imagine how people can have any job they want to? They can go to any university they want to. So that is a big plus. However, if I have to say one thing on the downside, it's because we have quite a young population that are pretty much unskilled. The government cannot provide quick enough the number of jobs and quick enough the education opportunities. So many of our universities turn away hundreds of thousands of people every year because we can't cope with the demand. So training in private companies are very important to contribute to the skills gap that we have in this country. But I'm positive that in about a 10-year period, we are going to eradicate the major skills gap. Because if I've just seen the contribution that training and development institutions, whether they are in corporates or government type institutions, that they've made, the strides they've made in making available opportunities, and that in itself contributed beneficially to the growth and development of our economy.
Are the companies in South Africa, most of are there like state-owned enterprises, or majority are privately held enterprises? Because in China we have,
Yes,
the SOE, state-owned enterprises, we have private companies, we have foreign investment joint ventures, or
yes,
of companies. Yeah.
yes. We have quite a good mix of foreign-based companies. We also, the majority of our companies, they are mostly privately held, but we also have quite a good mix of what we call public enterprises or state-owned entities, and that would include all the non-governmental agencies and organizations.
Okay.
So we have a number of training institutions. Many of the privately owned companies offer in-house training. So many young people who enter the job market join a good brand corporate company because of the training and development opportunities that they will have while in the company and being developed in-house. Sometimes they lack funding to go to university, or sometimes they just feel it's better to earn an income rather than go to university. And we know that, I mean, the jury is out about university education. It's still in our country, and I can't speak for other countries, but in our country, it's still so focused on theory and the academia rather than being based on competencies and good economic skills and job skills that can be easily applied, in a workplace.
Great. Great.
We
So,
find that many young people come out of university having done extremely well and have graduated with great results, but find it very difficult to adapt to a corporate environment where they do not learn and acquire the business skills necessary to function in a new job. So what happens also, part of our training and development in private companies, there's a huge focus also on coaching and mentoring, which is very good, because that it almost provides a bridge to these youngsters to develop themselves further. And sometimes companies even provide opportunities for them to take leave and go to university or to study part-time through e-learning. And I know we're going to talk about virtual and e-learning later on.
Right.
But there are many opportunities, and it's really contributing very well to the growth of our economy.
So give me one example. You mentioned that there are so many graduates. Well, first of all, their universities, they do prepare their students for companies, but there are so many still being left out. But so
Yes.
that kind of gives the burden. So they transfer the burden from the universities or occupational, schools, colleges to the companies. So the companies
Absolutely.
do
Yes.
have to spend a lot to train, to
Yes.
prepare
Yes.
these youngsters, young people to become their own employees. So
Absolutely.
can you give me one example, or like a big company or your client that they have served, and do they have like new employee training, continuation training, for veteran employees and for new employees? I just want to, put into some perspective, because we
Yes.
know very little about South Africa, because it's so far, even though we're in the, in the prestigious BRICS
Yes.
club.
If I can focus maybe on the financial services sector or
Yeah.
industry, it's a huge industry in South Africa, because we are. I think there are a lot of misnomers about our country. One of the misnomers, I think, is the fact that people are not aware that we have got excellent infrastructure and probably one of the best financial systems in the world. So from that perspective, these companies in the financial services industry, they are forerunners and taking a lot of initiative to continuously change their learning programs, whether it is for succession planning or career development, or providing on-the-job training, or preparing people to be entrepreneurs. Many of these corporate companies in the financial service sector would have don't want to call it a complete, fully fledged academic university, but it's almost like a occupational type university, or we call them training centers. I'm sure you have similar training centers in China. So many of these large corporates have their own in-house facilities, and sometimes outsourced to other private providers, or sometimes run internally. And they offer a variety of programs. Now, what South Africa introduced, and don't quote me on this, but probably about 10 or 15 years ago, we introduced a system to companies. It's an education and a standard setting body, or qualifications body rather, that identified key areas that are required and set up training, or what I would call it, like qualification bodies. So you'll find that in the mining area, they have their own body. The financial services sector, they have their particular body, and the IT sector, or the communications, the telecommunications sector, they've got their own body.
Right.
So this is government funded. So what they did was to create these bodies and curriculums and standards that
Mm-hmm.
training programs must be developed against. And
Mm-hmm.
then employees must provide evidence against these standards, workplace projects, etc., which we don't have to go in now. The benefit of that was that when you do a qualification or a program in-house in your company, and they are accredited with these government type bodies, they do get a qualification
Mm-hmm.
that is meaningful, that has benefit, that they can apply going to another company. The downfall of that, George, is
Mm-hmm.
companies get 80% of a tax
Mm-hmm.
returned to them if they spend money on skills development. So the downside of that is that a lot of training is happening where it should not have been training. So, you and I are both in the performance improvement field. So the only downside is what I find with many of my clients and potential clients, that they seem to want to know whether I'm accredited with such a body and whether I offer an accredited program
Mm-hmm.
according to these standards so that they can claim
Mm-hmm.
their tax, what we call levies,
Right.
training levies and taxes back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, it, it closes the door in a way for performance improvement opportunities,
Right.
because they don't always want to see it as an intervention. So they want to force everything so that it looks like training so that they can claim their levies back. However, um, these bodies, these qualification bodies that operate these qualifications and standards in the different sectors provide a great opportunity for companies to start an in-house facility or a training center. So there are many positive spin-offs for
Mm-hmm.
companies to embark on a journey of a particular qualifications body. The one other downside is that companies sometimes train for the sake of training, instead of understanding and taking a step back and saying, what are the business results we want
Right.
to achieve? And then say, is it going to be a training fix, or is it going to be something else?
Exactly.
Yes, so maybe that was quite a long answer to an initial question.
No, that's a very good answer, actually. That unearthed a lot of commonalities that both of our countries have in the same kind of
Yeah.
industry, the same field. Because in China,
Yes.
first of all, the governments do give us a lot of incentives as well for employee
Mm.
skill development. In
Yes, yes.
on the first day of January 1 of 2018, that's 3 years ago. So the
Mm-hmm.
government, the Ministry of Finance, they increased the tax claim to from 2.5% to 8%, meaning you can get your 8% tax back. So if your expenditure from your employee general amount of the pool of
Mm.
employee, you pull out 2%, 2.5%, that's before that. And now you can pull out 8%, and that's tax free.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
kind of
Okay.
increased to 2.5 times of the original amount that encouraged companies to use it. But
Yes.
we
Yes.
found the same spin hole again together, that a lot of companies, well, first of all, this mark has never been reached far beyond the 8%, because
Yeah.
basically the needs are there, but the needs are not there. I mean, the needs are there objectively, but we cannot find them. We cannot
Yes,
identify them. That's why we
yes,
also do training for training's sake, as just use
yes,
describe.
yes.
They just do
That's
it,
right.
and
Yeah.
sometimes it's not training problem, but they use training to solve it in
Yeah,
order to do
absolutely.
something financially.
Very
There's all
similar.
very similar. We're both
Yes.
developing countries and fast developing
Mm,
economy and
yes.
growth. Well, I think we both have the same motto, is that is
Yes.
everything is a developmental problem, is a developing problem. Every problem
Correct. Yes.
good problem because it is
Yes.
unearthed, and we welcome those problems because we know we are growing, and those are growing pains.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So it
So
is
I think, yeah, the system is the
the
same. The
same.
companies in South Africa have to spend 20% on developing employees through these qualification and training um, incentives, but they
Mhm.
can claim back 80% of what they've spent, actually
Yeah.
on what they've spent. So there is like a carrot for companies to train, to so that they can claim so 80% back.
Wow. Wow.
So it's a huge incentive. However, not many companies can actually access the training. So training in South Africa is a big business. It's a very lucrative business to be in
Mm-hmm.
for good training providers. So yeah, it's quite a, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Exactly. Just
Mm,
to put into perspective the size of the two countries' economy, I did a little bit of my homework. I compared the growth, the GDPs, gross domestic product. That is the South Africa is one, and then China is nearly 40. So the two sides, the sheer size of course, the
yeah,
population, everything
absolutely. Yes,
everything's different. And China is the second largest economy right now, but we have
absolutely.
so many problems to tackle. And
Yes,
I guess so. South Africa is the same. So my next
yes,
question to ask you is: in China right now, we have in companies, there are so many. Almost every year, we have some hot words or hot button words.
yes.
They pop up, and
Fads,
then
I call them fads. Yes,
exactly, the fast. And
fads.
then,
Yeah,
like, in the 20 years ago was e-learning,
yes.
internet learning, corporate, computer-based learning, and then LMS, and then competency model, training system, curriculum, instruction.
Gamification,
Uh,
gamification.
Gamification is one of them, and also, and then action learning, and then coaching, uh,
Yes,
OD. Oh gosh,
yes,
it's performance support, performance
yes,
improvement.
yes,
That's all the buzzwords, and then
yes.
every year. So is that the same in South Africa? That's my question.
Absolutely the same. Um, you'll find you'll find that executives or senior managers read the latest business book, or latest New York bestseller, and then they think they've got to roll this out and implement this in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely the same here. The only problem in South Africa is that because there's such a gap between those who have the skills and the education and those that don't have the skills and the education, that you roll it out, but it gets lost in translation. If I have to, not literally, but I think you know what I mean. It doesn't have the impact because people cannot understand the context of where
Yeah.
this is coming from. And
That's
I think you and I, or our two countries, have very similar or very much similarities we can't always follow an American model. It doesn't work from our political system perspective, our economy perspective, our culture. Well, you know, we have 11 official languages. Only official, there are plenty other languages being spoken. So every
In South
language
Africa,
group,
you have 11 official
yes,
languages.
yes. So we have many different ethnic groups, and they all have their own subculture.
Right.
So can you imagine if all these people work in one company and you're trying to roll out an American concept? It
Right.
gets lost in translation. So that for me is one of the major issues that I have for executives who have the access to going to the best business schools like Harvard or even MIT or INSEAD, and yet they come back and find it very difficult to really, you know, we call it dumb it down, dumb
Right.
it down, make it simplistic, make it workable.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has access to what I would call a PhD level of education, because that's not what is needed in South Africa. And
Right.
that doesn't mean I'm against academic qualifications and academic uh, routings. It's just not what is needed in South Africa as a developing nation. We are struggling a little bit. Our economy is not growing for the last 2 or 3 years at a pace where we want to to grow it, but there are ingrained political issues and problems that I don't think is necessary for us to talk about right now. But we're hoping with a new economic fast track, new economic development fast tracking plan that will show a steady increase in the growth of our economy over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you for saying that the American way doesn't exactly work in South Africa, because
Mm,
that's what we have encountered. Because first of all, we don't know that there are at the very beginning, at the dawn of all the, before training even become a science. It's not even a science today here, but at the very very beginning, nobody knows that well, we just try. We just try to
yes,
learn from the developed economy, and we
yes,
learn,
exactly.
and then we
Yes,
try to internalize them and localize them
absolutely. That's
to
good.
our own, to fit into our own culture. But
Yes.
a lot of times we fail because
Mm,
we kind of just copycatted the
mm,
exact way, the model. So later we realize that the two cultures, the civilizations are different, because from the English
totally.
speaking world and to the Chinese, to the Eastern, East and West, and that's, two different civilizations on planet Earth.
Yes,
So the way of thinking is different. So, and the social structure and everything
yes.
and cultures are different. And plus,
Mm,
in your situation, you have 11 official languages. That's not that's
yes,
unimaginable. China is
yes, it
also a
is.
vast country, big country, and we have so many provinces and so many local cultures, and their dialects I cannot understand either. I guess they have their own way of doing things as well,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
do have one, the standard Chinese and Mandarin as the official
Mandarin,
language
yeah. We have English as our business communication language.
in South Africa. That's good.
In South
And
Africa, yes.
yeah, in China, there's a lot of people learning English as well. And sometimes
Yes.
we joke there may be more people speaking English in China than in the US, because
Yes.
probably.
You know, in companies, we won't be able to understand each other if we allow everybody to speak their own language. So we had
Exactly.
to find a common ground and make English the business communication
The same thing here.
language.
If
Yes,
I live in Shanghai, if my friends in Shanghai they speak Shanghai dialect, it's like Russian or Portuguese to me. I
okay,
don't
okay.
understand the word, and well, I do understand maybe one. So
Yes,
my question to you is, so in the big companies, or in, I mean, generally speaking, like in China, we have leadership training, we have management training, we have
yeah,
technical training, we have new employee training. So all these are like existing is the same over there.
absolutely. Yes, yes, we have. Um, I I spoke earlier about training centers and training departments within companies. You'll find that every company in South Africa has a training department, and if they don't have a specific training department, they have HR that will take care of some internal training, but outsource what is required. So
Mm-hmm.
we definitely do have similar. We have leadership training, development, we have management training and development. We also have a further category. We have a lot of what we call supervisory training. So
Mm-hmm.
that's team leader training or first line manager training.
Mm-hmm.
Because our structures are still very hierarchical in companies today
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa. And then we have what we call the soft skills, and I hate that
Oh yeah.
word, but
Oh yeah.
the softer skills training that people just get sent on. You know, if there's a problem in a team or a department, send them on communication skills, or the big buzzword 10 years ago, and I see it surfacing again now, but thank goodness for other reasons. But send them all on EQ training. Yes, so I think it's very similar, although ours, I mean, we're only a 60 million population, between maybe 55 and 60 million population versus your enormous population.
60
Um,
million. That's probably Beijing and Shanghai combined.
yes, yes, and also, George, something that your Chinese audience would probably find interesting. We have almost a 30% unemployment rate.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So.
And that's across the board. It's not only amongst people that are unskilled. You'll
Mm-hmm.
find many youngsters who've come out of university that have been unemployed for 3 or 4 years. The government cannot simply provide a system to stimulate the economy fast enough to create jobs. So, in terms of our next development plan, I think that kicked in last year, there's a huge emphasis on job creation.
That's good.
But we can't, it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You can't just create jobs
Right.
if the economy isn't growing. So you've got to grow the economy so that there is an appetite for more jobs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate because we have fantastic resources, not only in people but also in our minerals,
Mm-hmm.
and in our agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got, yes, as I've said earlier on, we've got fantastic infrastructure.
Right.
People can't believe when they come to South Africa the
Right.
quality of our
Oh yeah.
highway
It's beautiful.
systems and our roads and our cities. But we also have some neglect of government departments not providing the service delivery that they should provide. But we are working very, very hard. And really, it is incumbent on all of us to, to make that work going forwards. I was something that we have quite frequently, and I'm not sure, I don't even think it is a problem in China, but we have a lot of what we call power outages. They are planned, so at least you know when you won't have electricity. So the second big thing is to go green with solar power, because we've got wind and we've got sun. You know, we've got sunshine, particularly, well, I would say in about 80 or 90% of our country, we've got sunshine throughout the year, you know, almost. So, you know, we've got such potential for solar power, and yet we keep on digging up more coal and burning more coal to make electricity.
What I know is one of my favorite person on planet Earth, well, the richest person on planet Earth from yesterday, Elon Musk.
Yes,
He's
isn't that amazing? And I'm thinking, how does it feel to be the richest person in South Africa? Now, when I tell some of my friends on other continents, they say, "Oh no, but he lives in America." I said, he was born and raised
South Africa.
in South Africa. I think his first university degree was obtained in South Africa.
Yeah. Well, he's the richest person on planet Earth, but he wants to be buried on Mars.
Okay, I didn't know that. Oh, I would love to meet him. I would really love to meet him.
Well, we're both in ISPI. Performance improvement is our profession, and we cover the training. And how's the performance improvement in South Africa? Is that a big topic?
It's not as big as I would like it to be, and the
Everybody
reason
says
for
that.
yes,
even back in America, everybody says that too.
well, it's quite a challenge in South Africa. The reason why I say that is, I mean, it's a huge opportunity, but it's just to get to everybody and spread the word.
Right.
The biggest issue around that, George, is that if you say or refer to performance improvement, there are two schools that people jump to. The one school they jump to is performance management. So I
KPIs, right?
I get that quite a lot, that people think performance improvement as a science is performance management. And the other school of thought is that, but everything we do is performance improvement. So, you know, typically socially, if I meet somebody and they want to know what I do and so on, and no, but you know, kind of, what do you do in consulting? Oh, I focus on performance improvement. I also do that. All right. So what is it that you do? Oh no, I do training facilitation. So there's a lot of confusion around performance improvement. And you know, George, my biggest wish is that we can create, I feel there's a new body of knowledge that is needed. And Klaus agreed that he will spearhead such a project, but I still have to catch up with him regarding that. We feel that, you know, there's a need. I feel there's a need that we need to come up with a new concept name for what it is that we do, so that people don't begin to blanket everything that they do under performance improvement. That performance improvement has to, without people thinking, oh no, that's too narrow. No, that's not what we want. So when you dig, what is it that you want? Oh no, we're struggling with people working in silos and thinking in silos. So they send the people on training, so that's my wish, George, that we can either as a profession or create a world project leadership team, that we can really come up with something that doesn't narrow the immediate thinking. So a kind of a word or a concept or a name that when people hear it, they know immediately what it is, what this fantastic methodology and approach can do.
Exactly. We got that too. We got that too. Every time we go in there, and then they go, you're a performance manager, you're a KPI, right? You
Yeah,
talk to my KPI,
yeah,
little girl who's manages the KPI database. So that's it.
yes,
No, I want to talk to your chairman. I want to
yes,
talk to your CEO. I want to talk to your president, because
correct.
we position ourselves just a little bit more. Our methodology. We position ourselves as management improvement and performance improvement only at the end of our
Yes,
methodologies, kind of the tactic part. So
yes,
it is small. And so we come from training and then performance management, performance improvement, and then we really went up to management.
yes,
So we'll talk about that later, but maybe
yes,
another time, but not in this session. So performance improvement, this kind of a situation, thank you for mentioning that, because this kind of a situation have been perplexing or troubling the performance improvement professionals
yes,
worldwide ever since
yes,
during the past
yes,
half century, I guess.
yes,
So, because we use the word performance.
yes,
So if we use some other things, and probably so we need kind of a redemption, or kind of a
yes,
reinvent the word or the
yes,
concept,
yes,
even kind of to bring it up to the next
yes,
level.
yes,
And because you and I knows that, because we're both from developing countries,
mm,
and as you earlier said, the American wage doesn't work. So if we use the 6 box model, or just copycat the good old HPD model, it surely doesn't work. That's
mm,
my experience, and I guess you said that you probably have
yes.
the same kind of experience as well.
Yeah, to a lesser extent, I suppose, because we do kind of follow a Western way of thinking. Um, but the one thing, George, that I want to not discourage, I mean, this is not to be discouraging your training audience who will listen to this interview. There's a lot of training and development that needs to happen in how to do it. Now,
Right.
you are an extremely good example of perfecting that. So
Thank
when
you.
my clients say to me, but do you do training? My answer is yes, I do. But everything I do it from my performance improvement way of thinking,
Right.
systems thinking.
Right.
So, so I think our new way of working, or
Hmm.
we need to have the words systems thinking in there. And
Hmm.
I've begun to use that as the name of my approach,
Hmm.
performance systems thinking approach.
Hmm.
So yes, training, there's a huge need to
Hmm.
train people in performance improvement.
Right.
Well, I'm just using the loose term performance improvement. I think you know what I mean.
I do.
So, like you, I've at a lesser extent, I've developed many programs in training people at different levels, even management, training them in performance improvement.
Hmm.
And
You
once they are exposed to it, they really see the application value of
right.
systems thinking. Yeah.
So can you give me give us an example of one of your performance improvement project? I know you have done many.
Something that you probably won't classify as performance improvement, but I do. And my client, who engaged me also viewed it in that way. During the lockdown, our lockdown started at the end of March and continued. I'm talking about our hard lockdown, continued until about October, beginning of November, I think. During that time, I was extremely lucky to do a project with our parliamentary service. Now, that's not the political sphere, that's actually the administrative body that provides the services to the political sphere. And unfortunately, I didn't come in right at the beginning where they did some kind of analysis to restructure the HR team. Now, before I continue, George, one of the things I really would like to change in South Africa, and I'm not sure, maybe you've got some advice, but performance improvement in South Africa is within the domain of human resources or human capital. It is very rarely that a manager or an executive would call me up for performance improvement, unless it's a word of mouth. So I don't particularly mind that, but I always say to them, this is not training, this is really about performance improvement. Right, to get back to the client. So they wanted to change the HR, the entire HR department, and the 30 people. So they asked me to develop a learning journey for them in business partnering skills. And they engaged me because some years ago, I did a performance improvement project in one of the sub-departments. And they wanted me to apply the performance improvement systems thinking way of doing it so that they can become business partners to management and the areas that they service. So that was a huge success, from people thinking that it's performance management, thinking it's just training them on some soft skills. I reworked a whole blended, well, I don't suppose you can call it blended, because we only had a closing of the project face to face. And I only did it with half the group because somebody tested positive for COVID, and then I had to come back from Cape Town. But nevertheless, so that was a hugely successful program that I'm busy tracking only qualitative results, but putting the emphasis on them to say, well, you've got to track what is the impact you are making with your client areas where you are going to apply the skills and the knowledge that you've gained. So that is one area that I feel was training based, really, because I had about 30 virtual sessions with them, or 36 virtual sessions with them. They had workplace projects. They had to do assignments. They had to do pre-reading. They had to do questionnaires. I had individual coaching sessions with them. So it was quite a nice opportunity, but also a challenge. Because virtual, as you know, is not always that beneficial for skill and competence building. You know, you need sometimes some physical contact with people.
Oh, yeah.
Because bandwidth and access to the internet is not what it should be in South Africa. And because many of the people worked from home, like in China, like in the whole world, they would live in an area where the tower that must provide the signal is too far away or is not that efficient. So it provided a lot of challenges, but that for me was a very enriching, satisfying performance improvement project, but it was actually skill building and training.
Mhm. Well, training training is one of the vehicles, one of the many interventions for performance improvement anyway. So
Yes,
you're
yes,
doing the right thing. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the example. I also want to ask you about the your role as well. First of all, are there professional bodies or
Yes,
professional organizations for like
yes,
training and performance improvement? What are they called? Like
yes,
in America, we have ICPI and ATD.
yes, yes.
So what are in South?
Um, yes, I referred earlier on to all the different training institutions that exist within companies and within government departments. But there are two major training and at HR or human capital or people practitioner bodies. And the one is called the Institute for People Management, IPM. They
Mm-hmm.
are very similar to IPD, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not related, but I think um, they have a membership to IPD. I'm not sure. IPM. And the other major one is the South African Board for People Practice,
Mm-hmm.
SABP. These two bodies are working together sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
um, but they operate as two separate bodies, but they're not government funded. They
Mm-hmm.
operate as non-profit organizations.
You
And
bet.
then, I mean, there are too many to mention, obviously similar to China and other developing countries and many of my neighboring countries and the rest of the countries in Africa. We
Mm-hmm.
have many privately owned training centers that offer anything from seminars to conferences to programs. And I run from time to time some of my training programs through these institutions.
You must have been very busy.
Well, um, yes, I'm blessed. I can't complain.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Great.
good.
Great. So do they do have like annual conferences and
Oh yes,
seminars
yes,
and all yeah,
yes.
like everywhere else. Great.
Yes, I tend to speak at many of these conferences, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow the last year or two, I've been so bogged down with bigger type projects.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in an EU-funded project that was for one of our government departments, where I worked with a colleague from Croatia and a colleague from the UK and a colleague from the Netherlands. But they wanted me on the project as the South African because it was for one of our South African government departments.
Are
And that
there
was quite a long project. And now, as I've said, I'm part of a project for the Namibian government.
next question is are there is corporate university this concept or this type of capability management operation very popular in South Africa?
Like a corporate university.
Is it
Yes,
popular?
although they for I think legislative reasons they
Mm-hmm.
are not called universities. I think
Mm-hmm.
they just call themselves affiliated with higher education. But
I mean,
generally, the
I
word
mean training.
universities is really not used like it is used, say, for instance, in America. I mean, there anything seems to be like a university. We are very kind of boxed in terms of what is academia and what is skills and competence
I
building.
see. In
Yeah.
the business world. So what
Yes.
what the training function is called in the business world, in such as in a big company,
They
are
just
they
call,
called
they would
training?
be called the name of the company and just called, like, say, ABC Training Center, or
Got it.
ABC Training Institute, or
How about
ABC Training Academy is a very popular name,
okay,
academy.
academy?
Yeah.
Yep. How about e-learning? Is e-learning very
Oh,
popular?
huge. Yes. Well, it's
Really?
become very, very, I don't even know what the right word for it is now. But as a result of lockdown,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and people cannot attend physical workshops and training programs,
Right.
everybody became quickly an expert in Zoom and quickly had to design how to deliver training and write, particularly in an e-learning or virtual delivery mode. So
Right.
I am actually, one of the shortcomings, I wish I was 20 years younger now. I would want to become an expert in developing from an e-learning perspective. I mean, I do it my own way,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it's not according to specifics in terms of e-learning or virtual learning. So it's
Mm-hmm.
becoming a big, big ask in South Africa to
Great. Are
develop
there also many
materials.
vendors?
There are quite a number of vendors coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier on that e-learning was popular 10 or 20 years ago. Well, it was a bit later in South Africa, but it was there, but it wasn't so big. It wasn't seen as a need. Now it's like,
Oh yeah.
that's the only way we do it. So many
Right.
of the people who worked in corporates in e-learning have now started their own businesses as entrepreneurs to
I would guess so.
to offer e-learning
Services.
material to
Right.
services, yes, particularly to develop the programs, in a particular structure. Yeah.
That's great. Well, COVID did bring a hell of damage to human society as
Mm.
a race. But well, inadvertently, it does give a big push to the way we
Yes,
communicate and the way we
a lot of
learn.
benefits. Yes, I think
Uh,
there have been a lot of
we
positive
didn't
benefits.
expect that, but it did come. So that's a side effect.
Unintentional, yes, unintentional positive outcomes.
Inadvertently. So
Yeah,
the other question, I want to ask you a lot of things. Is coaching very popular? Coaching.
very. Whereas perhaps 5 years ago, it was a fad. What do you do? Oh, I'm a coach. Everybody climbed on the bandwagon of coaching.
Coaching, right?
However, now it is becoming quite a profession, a very big need of organizations and companies. Um, so coaching is definitely becoming quite important, and at many levels. I think you and I have been doing coaching professionally, but we didn't actually call it as such to our clients. I did performance coaching in systems thinking. So whilst I'm showing and teaching them the particular skill, but you also offer the kind of other coaching benefits.
Right.
So there are, yes, I would say, to answer, the short answer is yes. It's a huge opportunity for coaching in South Africa. Mm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
At every
So
level, but yeah, particularly at management level,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just applied for almost everything.
Another question that has always been lingering in my mind is that, we have come across some of the challenges in performance improvement,
Hmm.
either in the United States, in China. There, we probably covered this, but I do want to focus a little bit. So, are there challenges for performance improvement or training in South Africa as a function for a company?
Not for training as such. I think training is not, I wouldn't call it over traded, but
Mhm.
training in South Africa is happening at a nice pace. I think if there are further developments that come out from research, and I'm not referring to new fads, but if there are new developments coming out of research that shows a different way,
Mhm.
then it will be developed. But
Right.
there's a huge need for training in performance improvement,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
the clients don't know that they need it. And I don't
Right.
know if that quite makes sense. But only when you have access to the client and you start talking in a performance improvement way, that they realize, oh, that's actually what we need. So it's to get the message out, that's such a big challenge.
I want
But
to say
performance
is,
improvement is still linked to, mostly in South Africa, mostly linked to performance management.
I know. What I want to say again is tell me about it. Tell me about
Yeah,
it.
yes. We have the same problems. We are not, you are from Mars and I'm from Venus. We are both from Earth.
Exactly. So this
Yeah,
session is very, very well choreographed because I wanted to do this with you instead of focusing on performance improvement and so many
yeah.
professional topics or
Mm.
knowledge based. This session is more focused on the
Training.
phenomena or the pace of
Mm.
development of
Yes.
training and the
Mm.
performance improvement or e-learning or
Mm.
coaching, all
Mm.
those popular words and all the
Yes.
facts.
Yes.
What
Yes.
happened in South Africa? Here's South Africa, here's China. So what we
Yes.
found out so far during the past hour, we're so much alike.
Absolutely. Very much alike.
And you said,
Um,
as you have said, that South Africa's economy really picked up during the started like 25 years ago, and China's training started like 20 years ago, and we started opening up like 41 years ago. So
yeah.
similar. We're both resource oriented at the very beginning,
Yes.
and now
Yes.
we're in both of our economy are going to kind of a transformation or or paradigm shift from
Yes.
resource oriented to capability oriented, because
Absolutely.
we want more skilled workers instead of
Yes.
just based on population sell resources and sales
Yes.
and labor intensive, because
Yeah.
we want more higher value add to our products and services.
Yeah.
And I think both of our economies, so that's
Yeah.
why we're both growing and we have so many problems, and thank
Yes.
god those are good problems.
Yes. To have, just one thing about training, about 20 to 30 years ago, um, a lot of training happened just for the sake of training. We spoke about this earlier on, but it was all about the activity
Oh yeah.
and measuring the quantity rather
Mm,
than the quality.
mhm.
And I was exposed to a professor who, when I was doing my university studies, I was exposed to a concept called, he mentioned training for activity versus training for impact.
Right.
And it actually was the planting of my seed to go into a performance improvement direction many years ago. So
Mhm.
even when for about 10 years, 10 years, maybe 8 years, I had a training company. but I always knew I wanted to only focus in performance improvement, because then there was a conflict for me. Clients would say, oh, can you do management training? Can you do supervisory training? Can you do communication skills? Can you do time management? And then I'm asking them, what is the business result that you're trying to
Right.
address? And then they couldn't tell me, and they didn't want me to do an analysis. And I found it was in conflict that I just do training without understanding what is the business need that they're trying to address. So when I do training now, it's
Mm-hmm.
focused in a sphere of improving performance
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
performance improvement training. But for
Right.
many years, I mean, after I landed in a training department by accident, and then
I
was,
think that's what everybody gone through. What
yeah,
everybody
then
fall
I
into
became a
training
training
by
manager.
accident.
Yeah, but I always knew about performance improvement. And when I practiced it in my team, when I was a training manager, we used
Uh-huh.
to, I used to develop them and say, don't go and ask the manager what training he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Be an internal consultant. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
him about his business. Talk to him about his results. But
Right.
anyway, that's another topic for later.
Right. Right.
But training is a huge, it's a huge business in South Africa. Yeah.
So what's your prediction in the future, training or performance improvement, both, or either, or both?
I think both. No, I think there'll always be, particularly, George, we are in such a developing economy mode.
Right.
Remember I spoke about 30%, almost 30% unemployment. So there are so many people who lack the skills and the competencies, and we can't get to them quick enough. So training, there'll always be a place to train. And I'm not against training. Even when I train in performance improvement, I tell my clients, we are not against training, but train for the right reason. If it's a skill or a knowledge or a competence gap, then training is the answer. So there is a huge opportunity for training. So I see a parallel, but obviously what I would like to see is that there's some crossover in the two fields in years to come.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
really my hopes and my dreams.
Can you tell me your role? Tell us our audience your role as director at ISPI, and what did you bring back to South Africa?
When I was with you as a director, I think what I brought back to South Africa wasn't, I mean, for me personally, it was a great opportunity and a huge learning opportunity. But in terms of the knowledge that I brought back, I can't say that the experience has made me a changed person in terms of gaining knowledge. But what changed me is exactly what you said early on, particularly when I was exposed to so many different people all over the world when we had our international conferences. And I'm now talking about pre-COVID, when we still had face-to-face
Right.
conferences in America and in Canada. The exposure to the challenges and the need for knowledge that people still have. And I think being on the board and coordinating some directions of where we should go, I think that for me was what I brought back to South Africa.
And also, you're also sitting on the board of EMEA, ISPI EMEA, are you?
Yes, I'm recently back on the board. I was a founding member. I was one of the first 3 people who started. ISPI, EMEA. Oh, I think in
Really?
2000. Yes, we had
Okay.
many meetings all over Europe, and I'm back now on the EMEA board because there's a strong focus on Africa. And the other thing I didn't mention, and you probably know this, it's very new still, but there's a new joint free trade agreement with most of the countries now in Africa doing business. And I hope that will create a lot of opportunities to share knowledge and experiences in training, and also to expand knowledge of performance improvement. So
I,
I'm looking forward to, although I do from time to time, I do work in Africa. In fact, I did a project last year in Kenya, small project, but I'm hoping that it'll be easier for all of us in Africa as one continent to do business. And that's what this free trade agreement, I hope, will also bring about. But it's early stages. Yeah.
the opportunity I want to say is the opportunity is definitely there,
Mm,
Belia, because
mm.
you probably know. Just for our audience, 2 points. Number one is EMEA. ISPI EMEA is a
Yes.
branch of ISPI. EMEA's EMEA. EMEA.
Yes.
EMEA it
Yes.
stands for Europe, Middle East,
Middle
and
East
Africa.
and
So
Africa. Yes.
and
Yes. And
Africa.
I'm
So
the
that
kind of African person.
exactly, and the BDS represent Africa. When they
Yes.
started the ISPI EMEA,
Yes.
it covers Europe, it covers the Middle East, and covers the
Yes.
entire African
Yes.
continent. And the
Yes.
number
And
2 point I want to
and
make is
also maybe to some extent India, although we don't, there's a particular
right,
acronym where you include
you bet.
India, but we mostly focus now on Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we have different conferences in different
Right.
countries every year.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think you know all about
I've
that.
been there
And
once. I
yes,
met people from Tajikistan,
yes,
Kazakhstan, and those stands, those
yes,
countries in the Middle Land there, and
yeah,
so many of them.
yes,
And so number two point I want to make to our audience that the African continent
yes, yes,
is much larger than it is seen on the
correct. That's
world
correct.
map that we
Yes,
see today.
yes.
So if you
Mm,
really go online and search for it,
mm,
the African continent is
mm.
really a huge continent, much larger than it is shown on the world map. I
Yeah,
just want to remind
correct.
you that
Yeah,
because
yes,
it's a way of projection, that
yes,
mathematical
absolutely.
projection.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Russia is not that big on the map,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's all perspective.
Yes,
So
it
anyway,
is perspectives.
I just want to comment on what you said, Belia, is that there are so many. If there's free trade and just began,
Yes,
and as you know, that China has a huge investment in Africa, and
absolutely.
the
Also in
opportunity
South
are there.
Africa.
Yeah,
Yes, also in
and
South
South
Africa.
Africa is the richest country in Africa, and so is a leading figure in this field. And
Yeah,
I hope that uh, I mean, everybody looks up to South Africa in
correct.
that
Yes,
continent. So whatever you
yes,
do probably will generate much more impact for
yes,
all the like 50
mm,
plus countries on the continent.
yes, yes,
So the opportunities are definitely there.
yes. I'm
So I want to
hoping
encourage you,
to,
Amelia, to grasp, to seize those
mm,
opportunities and
yes,
work with your international friends and colleagues
yes, yeah,
and bring more value to them.
yeah. I'm hoping that,
Count me in.
yes, I was just going to say, in fact, you read my mind. I have, I've over the years have built a small network with people in different African continents, countries, and I've also worked. Uh, either speaking at conferences or running a workshop or helping them in some way. And because there is such an opportunity in Africa, my wish is that Africa and China can move closer together, because of, if you put it on this scale, we all have the same needs and wants, and we all are similar in a way because of our developing economy perspectives.
Exactly. We
So
we have a
that
lot in
in yes. So maybe we should start a China-Africa liaison. Well, we have it already, but maybe we should, in another meeting, think about something, how we can
performance
explore
improvement.
opportunities. Yeah.
Both training and performance improvement is so fast developing, being so I mean developed so fast in China, and to some extent, my prediction is it's gonna kind of come up to to catch up with the U.S. From another perspective,
From a
So
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we probably pass around the curve,
Yes. Yes.
so probably we'll do that. So there are so many opportunities. My
Mm.
I know your time is but
Yeah, it's entirely
I
up
do
to you.
yeah
I,
I do want to come into next set of questions,
yes.
concluding. How do you how do you predict the pandemic will impact our field as a whole? I mean, now I'm asking you not only as a South African person, but as a veteran, seasoned scholar and researcher and thinker in this field.
Mm. Are you, and particularly in the training field, because this
Or
is
training.
going to the training masters audience. I spoke earlier on about there were a lot of positive spin-offs from the pandemic. It's either you see the glass is half full or half empty. It depends on your internal focus. I don't know whether it is the pandemic or being locked down or a combination of just blanketed under the pandemic. I think there was a lot of opportunity for self-reflection at many levels, at a business level, at a personal level, at a country level, at an industry level, at a regional level. I think the self-reflection at all these levels are making us think about doing business differently and thinking about how do we change our business model. But I'm not talking about obvious things like if you are in retail, focus on just online. I'm talking about at every level. How do we do things differently? And I believe strongly that the catalyst for this is a systems thinking approach to identifying, solving, and producing results. That is definitely what I believe the outcome. Not immediate. I think people are still processing in terms of what's happening to them and their businesses. I mean, we all know, or worldwide, many people were retrenched and lost their jobs. But many businesses, the very core of what is needed in a developing country, entrepreneurship, innovation, they suffered and had to close their business with not many good opportunities going forwards. But there are always other directions. If the river used to flow this way and it can't go there anywhere in that way, it will find other ways to spread. And that's what I believe the pandemic has done and will do going forwards. But I don't have the specific answers for you, George. But I just believe there's a change happening and I'm still figuring it out. But I know there is a shift. It's almost like the the plates of the
Right.
earth. There's a shift happening.
Yep.
And I feel the shift, not creating a negative earthquake, but creating a, a new a new horizon of
Yep.
opportunity.
Yeah, when they collide, when the different plays they collide, and then
Yes,
some new opportunities and
absolutely.
come up, and
Yeah,
yeah, lava,
definitely. Yeah,
yeah, eruptions of volcanoes.
yeah.
And so, if you had a chance to start it all over again, what
Mm,
do you have it done? What
yes.
would you have done differently?
And I'm not answering you in terms of what we just spoke about now, in terms of new reflections and new opportunities. I'm just talking generally.
You
What I
bet.
would have done differently, George, is I would have spent more time learning about business.
Mm. Business.
A business, how does business work? What is
Oh.
business? I find that many young people who enter the job market, they want to focus on developing their profession or what they think they should be doing in a job,
Mm-hmm.
instead of taking time
Mm-hmm.
and learning. So if I have advice for young people, I would say join a company that offer opportunities for internal rotation so that
Mm.
you can learn the entire business. You know,
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, I worked in a German multinational,
Mm-hmm.
big multinational,
Mm-hmm.
and we still had international rotation. And
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible for placing managers international and ensuring that they are coping, you know, providing some mentoring, etc. But internally, we had youngsters who come in, and we
Mm-hmm.
rotated them in the business
Mm-hmm.
so that they can learn all aspects of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that is lacking
Mm-hmm.
because people come into, whether it's a training space, and they focus too narrow on the training
Right. Per se.
theory or uh, knowing about the business. And an example I can quote, I'm not sure about China, but in South Africa, uh, a new job that is fast developing, excuse me, is what they call business partner,
Oh yeah.
or they call them HR business partner or whatever. Okay, so now
HRBP, so popular in
yes,
China.
HR, yes, it's
HRBP,
huge. It's
huge
huge
too.
in South Africa. Yes, I'm dropping
Here
the
too.
HR piece and just calling them business partners.
Right.
But the issue that I find, or the challenge that I find,
Yeah.
is these people don't lack how to, they lack context of how to interpret for the business the strategy. They
Right.
lack the context of understanding how the business model works. And that is the advice I would have for any young training professional or a performance improvement professional. Join company if there is no rotation, formal rotation, create your own rotation, or jump to many companies where you can have different experiences. Because I have found, and I thought I had quite a good business experience before I came into your typical HR department. Uh, I but it's stood me in good stead that I've had those experiences. But if I could change it, I would have wanted more exposure to business.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you, Belia, for saying that, because HRBP is also like, it's also another fab, it's so big in China, and
It's
those
huge here
buzzword,
too.
it's those
Yeah.
buzzword I just mentioned earlier, and I missed the HRBP. So HRBP is also confidence modeling
Yes.
and also assessment center. Assessment is big time too, and so
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. Putting so all HRBP all HR professionals who are big really indulge themselves into HRBP really need to build some context of business. It's not
Absolutely.
HR. It's not, you're not
Yes.
HR. You're a business
Yeah.
consultant.
Yes. Yes.
Business, well, HR
Business.
is only solve 5% the most of business
Yeah.
problems. That's what HR
Yeah.
does.
But
So business
what
is
the opportunity is for this, George, is
right.
that now with outsourcing, well, that was the first thing, but with the
Mm,
pandemic
right.
and with AI and robotics and RPA and all of the processing that can happen now, and jobs being made redundant.
Hmm.
So HR, they restructure and find, but we don't need people to recruit. We can get a robot to do it, or a
Oh yeah.
process,
Thank you for
computer
saying
software
that.
to do that. But now they are all in HR, and now they are posted to a business in the company as the HR BP. And they have no idea, because
What's business? Yeah.
they may have been a recruiter, or they may
Right.
have done assessments, and now they don't know the business. And now there's such a big gap between what the manager wants and what they can offer. And that
Exactly.
can keep me busy for another 50 years. But
Oh
I'm
yeah.
only one person.
Well, you have so many partners and team members working around you, so
No,
you're
I
much better
don't.
off. Yeah.
I don't. I usually outsource, but uh, I don't chase work like I used to. I
Hmm.
also have found, and this is not pandemic talk, this was actually before COVID. I just found that there's more to life than working. And I have created a good balance for myself. I mean, I'm still a driver, but
Hmm.
uh, I don't have sleepless nights because I don't have 10 projects going.
Well, thank you so much, Media. And tonight, I got some resonance from another person who is also in the developing country. So I'm hearing a lot of echoes tonight. So I'm so
Okay, good.
glad. The training master series in the previous sessions, and we always have some master thinkers like yourself and gurus in this field, and we always talk focusing on professional knowledge and this model and
Mm.
that how it works and how to solve organizational problems. But you are the only one. This session is very special
Thank
because
you.
you're located in South Africa, and you're such an experienced professional in this field. So that's why this session is more focused on how does it how what is it like over there in South Africa,
Mm.
the other side of the planet.
Yes.
So yeah, you're exactly on the other side,
Yes.
go to the heart of the earth. So, well, thank you so much for so much
Pleasure.
sharing of your knowledge, your experience, and what you have learned in South Africa. We wish you well, and of course, we look forward to collaborating with you, because there are so
Yeah.
many countries. They're basically maiden lands in this
Yes.
area, and I mean
Yeah.
the entire continent. And
Yes.
so we look forward to more collaborations
Yeah.
and a sharing and exchange of
Yeah.
ideas in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you. Stay
opportunity.
safe.
I love speaking to you. Yes. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
That's my interview with Belia Nel. How do you feel? I feel very, very delighted. I feel that I learned a lot, because while she's talking, I was imagining what's like in China, because here's China, here's South Africa. We're so much alike because we have gone through just several decades of fast development, because we're both members of the BRICS, BRCS. So we have so many similarities, and yet we have so many other areas and that differentiate each one of us in areas that we can make contributions to organizational growth. Thank you, Belia. Thank you for sharing all those with us. And during our interview, we talk a lot about what's training like in South Africa. Is there any like state-owned enterprises or major private enterprises? And we just learned that they have 11 official languages. So the atmosphere is so totally different. And yet, training function is going through the similar path that we have gone through during the past 20 years. So what has been like in China is so much alike in South Africa. And we also learned that there are performance improvement, there are action learning, there are coaching, there have been all those, we call them fads during the past 20 years, and they are also exploring. So what I want to say is, thank you, Belia, and good luck, South Africa. Let's join hands together to work together as fast developing economies to explore the best way to improve our value in organizations. Thank you, Belia. Thank you for what you have done, and thank you for making contribution while you're during your tenure on the ISPI board also. We would like to hear more from you in the future. Next week, we are going to have the very honor to interview another heavyweight. Her name is Dr. Darlene Van Teen. Professor Darlene Van Teen is a retired professor, but she has been known in this field for many years. And these are the books that I read, what I studied while I was just out of school and just coming to the jobs in the United States. We call them the Blue Book and the Green Book. And these books are all authored by Darlene Van Teen on performance improvement. And she is also the creator of the HPT model. If you're familiar with performance improvement, you must have come to learn the HPT model in your early years. And yes, she is the creator of it. So during our next week's interview, we are going to ask her a lot of questions around performance improvement, how that model was created, and what's the significance of it. And we'll also ask her to describe it for us. So we got a lot to ask her and to learn from her next week. So until next week, please stay tuned, stay safe. Thank you, and good night.